Greetings and welcome to Shihlobo as we bring you another powerful message by Bishop Mosa Sono.
All things are possible to them that believe. To them that believe.
So the title of my message today is "The Ark is Coming to My Home." Or the ark is coming to your home. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, the ark is coming to my home. Look at another neighbor, because that one didn't say it with conviction. Say it with conviction. Say neighbor, the ark is coming to my home. A lot of what we see in the Old Testament becomes a pattern. And if you want to be theologically sound, it's very helpful for you to study these patterns. Because what happened in the Old Testament, as much as a lot of it is a historical fact, but many of those things were done purposely by God to become a pattern, to become a shadow, a paradigm, to become something that depicts what is to come. God in the Old Testament, particularly when you look at the hermeneutical law of first mention, when anything is mentioned for the first time in the Bible, it's important for you to study and to take note, because the first sets the pattern for the rest. And if you understand what happened with the first, you can almost tell the pattern. And if anything is to go wrong, you can go to the root cause and be able to resolve whatever has gone wrong. So, when it comes to the ark, in the Old Testament, God sets forth revelation of divine truths. There are three distinct arks that we read about in the Bible. The first time an ark is mentioned is in Genesis chapter 6. We won't read it, you can read it at home. From verse 13, about the ark of Noah. God instructed Noah to build an ark. And I want to because ke tla bua for a long time. But that is meant to depict something, the ark of Noah. The second mention of the ark in the Old Testament is the ark that was prepared for the baby Moses, which we will call the ark of Moses. That's in Exodus chapter 2. But then the ark that will be our focus of study today is the ark that we find mentioned in Exodus chapter 25. And I will refer to this ark as the Ark of the Covenant. Now, when it comes to this Ark of the Covenant, there is a certain pattern that we find. And this pattern is what I want to talk about today. What is the Ark of the Covenant? According to the statements in the priestly code, the Ark of the Covenant was a chest or a box made out of acacia wood. This chest or this box was about 1.22 meters long, 1.22 meters long, half a meter wide, and half a meter high. This morning they reminded me, 7 o'clock, that there are many people who are kissed. The ark looks like a kist. It's a box made like that has a lid on it. It's called a kist. Now, the Gen Zs don't know a kist at all. I didn't say a kiss for you Gen Zs. I said a kist. All right. The ark then, and you'll see the picture, was covered with gold within and without. And it was ornamented with a molding of gold running all around it. Thank you so much. This is better. The construction of the ark occurred after the children of Israel reached Mount Sinai, where Moses received the commandments and other laws of God. The detailed instructions of the building of the ark, you'll find them in the book of Exodus in the Old Testament, indicating that it was constructed as part of the broader effort where God was establishing a system of worship And the ark was meant to also establish a covenant relationship between God and the Israelites. Thank you for that ark. It's all right now. The ark was one of the most important pieces of furniture that you could ever find in the tabernacle. And it was such an important thing because it is through the ark where God was depicting two things. He is a God who is in covenant with the children of Israel, but that the ark housed, in inverted commas, housed the presence of God. Who built the ark? It was built by the Israelites under the supervision of Moses, however, by the instructions of God. It was built shortly after they fled Egypt during the Exodus. Because one of the major things that the children of Israel missed in Egypt was them as a people of God meeting together, having communion with God. Again and again, even when Moses would go to Pharaoh, he would say, let God's people go because we want to go out into the wilderness to worship God. So the issue of God meeting with his people was such a major thing. So this ark, as we said, it was built shortly after they fled Egypt during Exodus. This is around the days of the 13th century, according to biblical chronology. And so when you read in the book of Exodus in the Bible, especially chapter 25 to chapter 31, this is where the construction of the ark was carried out. It was done by Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Er, who came from the tribe of Judah. And all of that, the tribe he came from, whose son it was, and all of that has a significance, but we don't have time to talk about it. God was so strict about the construction of the ark that he gave specific measurements to Moses, the material that is to be used. And God even told him, I don't even want to take a chance. I'm going to make sure I choose who builds it. And even the one who builds it, I'm going to fill him with my spirit. And so Bezaleel was appointed by God, filled with the Spirit of God in wisdom, in understanding, in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship to design artistic works. And you'll find that in the book of Exodus from 25 to 31. He was assisted by Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, who came from the tribe of Dan. So it was the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Dan. The tribe of Judah is the tribe of worship. The tribe of Dan is the tribe of warriors. And so it was these two people anointed by God who built the ark. And God endowed them with skills and with wisdom for the task because the ark was meant to symbolize certain things. It was designed to be a symbol of the presence of God among his people. So when the ark was built, we can have the picture again. When the ark was built, it was this box, as we said, which had a covering over it. We'll call it a lid. And if you open the lid, you can see on top of the lid, there were two angels there sitting with outstretched hands. When the priest offered sacrifices, he would bring the blood of the sacrifice onto where those angels are, which is called the mercy seat. But then when you took the lid off, inside the ark were three important items. The first one was the 10 commandments that God gave to Moses. So the two tablets of the 10 commandments were inside the ark. Secondly, in the chest, there was a jar of manna. Remember, when the children of Israel were in the wilderness, God gave them food. In a place where there was no mall, there was no food. And he gave them food as daily bread. Jesus teaches us to pray, give us this day our daily bread. And when manna came, God told them, take enough for one day. Skela panga. Look at your neighbor, skela panga. Yeah. And people being people, never panga. But if you took more manna than you needed for a day, the extra manna would be corrupted. So God was, all of that means something. The manna means something. It talks about God supplying our needs. But God says, depend on me every day. And the manna as well came to designate the bread that comes from the Father, which is healing. Oh, I ask you, I am more. Ke tlelwa ke tsietsi modulasetulo, e re se ke ka ya moo. Ke tla ya ko ke sa batleng go tla ya teng. But this manna, this jar of manna, was meant to be a sign of remembrance of the Lord providing bread in the wilderness after the Israelites were in a place where there was no food. But then the third item in this chest, in this ark, was Aaron's rod. There was a time when there was an argument among the people as to who God has chosen. See, when people argue about who's better than who, it's a problem that dates back. And God said to Moses, all right, Moses, because people are arguing, I'm going to give an instruction that for all those who feel like each one of them must go and get themselves a piece from the tree, break off a branch from a tree, and they must write their names on those branches. And they must place them somewhere, and after several days, whosoever's branch sprouts and grows, lives on it, that's the one I've chosen. So they did that, and among them was Aaron. A few days later, when they came back, only one rod had budded. It was Aaron's rod. This is what we learn. God chooses whoever he wants. God's choice doesn't come by voting. It's a sovereign thing. And if God has chosen you, what you do will bud. It will have life. If Mudima sa ubisa, utla fuguza, uskabona next. Particularly in the ministry. So this rod, not only did it confirm Aaron, but going forward, Aaron became the lineage through which the priests were chosen. And every priest was chosen after the order of Aaron. His rod, therefore, was placed in front of the ark. So the ark then was a very important thing. A symbol of the presence of God. Inside of it were these three items, which we'll maybe talk about them during the week. I won't talk about it today. God says in Exodus 25, reading from verse 10 to verse 22, God says they are to make an ark of acacia wood. I'm reading the New English translation. Its length is to be 3 feet 9 inches. Its width to be 2 feet 3 inches. Its height to be 2 feet 3 inches. That's the dimensions I gave. Now note verse 22. He says, I will meet with you there. I will meet with you at the ark. That's where I'll meet with you. Not anywhere else. I will meet with you there. And from above the atonement lid, from between the two cherubims that are over the ark of the testimony, not only will I meet with you, I will speak with you about all that I will command you for the Israelites. So the ark of God meant God in the midst of his people. God active among his people. Therefore, the ark of covenant, therefore, is inseparable from the presence of God, or what we call the glory of God. Tell your neighbor, the ark is coming to my home. Tell your other neighbor, the ark is coming to my home. Note, 1 Kings chapter 8. Then Solomon convened in Jerusalem the Israelite elders, that's the New English translation, all the leaders of Israel, tribes and families, that they could witness the transferal of the ark of the Lord's covenant from the city of David. Now, we don't have time to get into that, but let me say it now. The ark would move from one place to the other. It moved from the tabernacle to the temple to whatever, and all of those things mean something. But also it moved from the tabernacle to a home, to the city. All of that means something, and I'll come to that in a short while. But here's what's interesting. When any nation fought against Israel, as long as Israel had the ark among them, you couldn't defeat them. They became the indomitable nation. Therefore, the pursuit of many nations and the priority of many nations is that when they fought Israel, they should do their best to get into the temple and take the ark. Because when you read the story of the ark, as long as the ark was there, God was among his people. Because the ark was not just a symbol, but it housed the presence of God. The children of Israel, that's all they had. They were not a big nation. They didn't have a great army. They didn't have great resources, but they had God among them. Ah, you didn't hear me. I said they had God among them. Yeah. I tell people, you know what? Even if we may not, we'll try to leave whatever for Wanavaruna. But I think the best thing you can ever leave for your children is the ark of God. Yeah. Is the ark of God, is the presence of God, is the knowledge of God. So here we see the ark has been brought, verse 2 of 1 Kings 8. All the men of Israel assembled before the king during the festival of the month of Ethanim, which is the 7th month. When all the Israelite elders had arrived, note, the priests lifted the ark. The priests and the Levites carried the ark of the Lord. Here's a principle, Basalam. The ark of the Lord, which designates the presence of God, is to be carried by the priests, which is us in fivefold ministry, and the Levites, which are the musicians. What people have never understood is the critical working together between the musicians and the preacher to bring in the ark into the church, the presence of God. Yeah. So musicians are just as responsible to live a righteous life and a holy life and a separated life like the priests do. Hey, and if they don't learn to cooperate with the mantle that stands behind the pulpit, if they are full of themselves and they want to do whatever they want and not understand, even if he can sing or she can sing, he is in charge of the service under the direction of the Holy Spirit. And they are to follow the guidance of the one who stands here. Years ago, we had Bill Hybels here in our church. He visited the Sunday service and he mentioned something that mina bendingeko awe. Tell your neighbor, beangeko awe. Bendingeko awe bazalwan. We just do it in Jena, instinctively. It's not rehearsed. Mina kaiketsa nje. For me, because I started in this church when it was still Rhema, I was a worship leader. I used to lead music, play the guitar, lead the music. I served a lot in the church. So when I became pastor, I continued, even if I wasn't leading the music, to sing with the group. And Masalana, I don't know why I care kwale. Ka first service banken say something. Ke bona nkare le ka second service linkisa mo ke sa batleng go ya teng. I think gore le dutse mo na bontate. Why ya no ke kena mo ditabeng tse ke ne ke sa batlo ke na mo tsona. Di tla ntsietsa. Marare ke kene Mbazalana. Here's the thing, Bazalan. And I've spoken with other pastors about this. You see, when a service unfolds, there's a combination of things that must be taken into consideration during the service, right? The praise, the worship, the preaching of the word, the move of the Spirit, and giving an opportunity for people to encounter God. Maybe let me make it away. So even if Mokerekeng is a program director, the preacher is the program director. And you have to balance these critical, sensitive things so that people can fully encounter what God has in store for them for that day. Now, we being people, we miss it. There's days when we are not on point. We are misfiring. We are buffering. There's a time when the music group is missing it. There's a time when you as a congregation, you are missing it. Right. So, every service at a time, there's a purpose God has in mind. 1 Corinthians 14. You'll note that Paul gives that understanding. Every service, there's a purpose to it. There are things somebody about in the service. Because when I take time to pray for the service, I usually know, not always, but I will usually know if it was a workshop or a seminar, the theme for the day. I'm not saying it pompously. I'm saying when God anoints you as a pastor, he will give you that understanding. and you pray those things through. There's often times when I've seen the service, even before I came here, and I knew prophetically what was going to happen. Now, if you have a hard-headed musician who's full of themselves, right, who's not going to listen to the guidance more, it's going to be a problem. Now, the music group, of course, they prepare songs ahead. We go with whatever they've prepared and whatever, and it's all fine. But there are times when instinctively, just by God coming into the service, God will direct in a different way. If ona and then if Lilona hali responding, then the purpose for the service is totally neutralized for the day. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So there are times when God sovereignly will bring a different thing into the service. It's a different song, it's not on the list. But that one song, when we sing it, the atmosphere in the service changes. How was it? So the issue about the priests and the Levites, and for me it becomes a tragedy when I see people playing in church and forgetting, but we're not here to be seen by you. Now, even if God uses us, we are not the main item. Jesus is the main item. Now, come on now. Don't give me that look. Jesus is the main item. We are here for you to experience the glory of God. Because it's only the glory of God that changes people, not our eloquent preaching, not our nice personalities. So, if you find people who are self-absorbed, who come here and parade who they are, you know what God does? He just sits outside the door. You can have your fun and have your emotions. Only one thing, if I distance myself from this service. So we see here the priests and the Levites are carrying the ark. My goodness. They are lifting it. Verse 4. The priests and the Levites carry the ark of the Lord, the tent of the meeting, and all the holy items. Then what happened? Verse 10. Once the priests left the holy place, this is after Bayan said all the things they were supposed to do. Eating, a cloud. Oh, Jesus. A cloud filled the Lord's temple. And the priests could not carry out their duties because of the clouds. Why? Because the Lord's glory filled his temple. See, there are times when a service you can't even preach. You were meant to preach, but it goes longer than what you wanted. Because the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. Yeah, I think so. I would do that if I was you. What is the glory of God? The glory of God is the presence of God. It would manifest in the form of smoke, fire, cloud. But what does the glory of God represent? Speaks of God's beauty, power, honor, a quality of God's character that emphasizes his greatness and authority. When the glory of God is in manifestation, when his presence fills the house, nobody has to tell you that God is great. Something about God's presence, it evokes in you a sense of awe. Nobody has to say kneel down. You kneel down by yourself. Nobody has to say raise your hands. You do it by yourself. And somehow our mortal flesh retracts and pulls back Because it's in the presence of that anointing and that power where we become aware of our sinfulness. When Isaiah came into the presence of God, he says, I am a man of unclean lips. When John saw Jesus on the island of Patmos, he says, I fell down as one that was dead. Something about the presence of God, something that I pray to God, God will restore to our generation. Because we don't know much about the presence of God. Why? Because we parade too much on the pulpit. You know, there's been a couple of times, Bazalana, where one has been in the presence of God like that. Now, let me just say something here. Okay? Unfortunately, people try to fake these things. When they've had a good service, they try to manufacture that presence through emotions, shouting and screaming. Now, this is what I learned from the late Dr. Hagen, okay, in his teachings. I don't want to give you the impression of Nekidutiliana, so no. No, from his teachings. This is what he said. He said, in all instances where he had a supernatural encounter with God, he has seen Jesus, I think, 8 times. Yeah. He's been taken to heaven. I mean, this man was a prophet. I mean, he was just something else. But this is what he says. He says, in all instances where I had an encounter with Jesus, there was nothing that morning and when I woke up that said that I was going to have an encounter with Christ. What does that mean? That means, Bazalon, God takes you into these encounters by his choice. Now, Mamela, however, when you can live such a life and carry yourself in such a way that you are a possible candidate for that. Mara, you can't almost forestell. I've never seen Jesus in na Kamaklaka. I've never seen him in a vision. I've never seen an angel. Nothing. Sometimes I complain or maramudim. I mean, 41 years old, but funny, I've had people who have seen angels standing behind me when I'm preaching. And I want to marawain.
Well, that's where we leave it for today. We hope you enjoyed this amazing series. Join us next week for another powerful word by Bishop Mosa Sono. Feel free to get in touch with us using the details on your screen and visit our website to find a Grace Bible Church branch nearest to you. Until next time, God bless.